Welcome to the Higher Power Podcast, presented by Higher Power Sports PT, the show dedicated to helping active individuals like you unlock your full potential through expert insights on injury prevention, performance enhancement, and recovery. Kurt Kessler is a board-certified specialist in sports physical therapy and an athletic trainer. In each episode, he and his guests bring you the latest evidence-based strategies to help you move better, feel stronger, and stay injury-free. Let's learn together.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Higher Power Podcast. I am super fortunate today to be joined by someone that I look up to quite a bit, and his name is Kallasy. He's a doctor of physical therapy, certified strength and conditioning specialist, and the founder of Beyond Pain, and he's soon to be a published author. Now, my perspective here, I know Tyler a lot better than he knows me. Tyler was one of the mentors in the business coaching program that I was in. I was never able to make it to any of his live calls because of the time of day and our time difference here. But I listened to every single recording. Tyler taught us and helped us to implement the exercise programming for the remote portion of our business. And he has a wildly successful online coaching business. Without him, I would have no idea what I was doing. He taught us some of the nuances of how he helps people without ever being in front of them, and that is just so valuable. So I mentioned Tyler on a recent episode where I talked about my low back pain from over the summer. I sent him the shout out that I gave him and invited him on, and he was gracious and willing to come on to talk about managing, training with, or overcoming chronic pain. So Tyler, thank you so much for hopping on today.
Yeah, Kurt, man, listen, I love getting on and collaborating with colleagues. We have a history, so this is going to be even more fun because we've got some overlapping experiences and likely beliefs or biases, if you may. So yeah, I'm excited to get down here and chat.
They're most likely overlapping because ever since I joined the program and started just learning from you and Ray and Kate, I can't really describe how much I really look up to you and how valuable everything I learned from you is. So it's overlapping because I take your word as gold. So, but it sounds funny, but you are just quite literally one of the best at what you do. And so I'm super excited to get rolling here.
Well, thank you, man. I might need to have you clip that up as my word is gold and send that to my wife here after this conversation.
So let's start by, I'm just going to have you tell us where you started, what stirred a change for you, and how did you get where you are and where you're going?
Yeah, so I graduated from Utica University, which is in central New York, upstate New York, in 2018. That's my hometown as well. While I was in PT school, I kind of realized that we'll say the traditional way of doing things wasn't what I wanted to do. And that's not throwing shade at the traditional medical model or the healthcare system or physical therapists that work in the system. I just slowly had this growing feeling that I wanted to do something different and didn't know what that was. During PT school, I started training folks in person, group fitness, one-on-one, went and got my CSCS, and eventually started an online coaching business while I was in PT school. Now, it was quite small, at the time, 5-10 people at one time. But that was kind of my start of okay, this is the doorway out, if you may, eventually. When we graduated in 2018, my, at the time, girlfriend and I started doing travel physical therapy. So, the classic travel therapy. We moved every 3 to 6 months for upwards of about 4.5 years. We lived all over the country, worked in every setting you could work in, including a COVID hospital. We worked in a COVID hospital for about 6 or 7 months. Our contract got dropped in March of 2020, and I found a listing on Indeed where they were offering PT positions. They built a hospital out of an empty building, and it was just chaos for 6 months. The hazmat suits, all that stuff. We did that for 6 months. That was an adventure. But while we were traveling, I continued to build the online business to a point where I kind of had to make a decision to actually shrink it and keep it as a side passion, if you may, or kind of jump ship and stop doing the main thing for a while. Ultimately decided to, jump ship and do my own thing. I stopped taking travel contracts while my girlfriend was still taking contracts, slowly building the business. And then eventually she also made a transition. She did some postdoc work in canine physical therapy. And now we live in basically Boulder, Colorado. She works in a canine rehab hospital with 3 DVMs and 3 DPTs, and she treats dogs and cats all day. And when we moved to Denver, I was fully online. I was only working with folks online, and eventually opened a small private practice in a little town called Arvada, Denver, which is Arvada, Colorado, which is a suburb of Denver. So I treat 8 to 12 hours a week. I have 3 4-hour slots throughout the week where I treat folks from the gym, from the community, whatever it may be. And then the other time is spent supporting my online clients, making content, and as you mentioned, writing, now editing a book. So that's my life in a nutshell, obviously outside the extracurricular fun.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about your entire story. Now, I knew a little bit just based on some of the calls in the past, but just so cool how you blended all of your experiences together. Like you're a former football player, so and you train hard. Anybody who follows you on Instagram can see that you train hard. You've had the COVID experience. You've worked in a number of different settings. And when anybody has the opportunity to learn from you or even just follow your stuff on Instagram, like you can just see all of those experiences blending together and coming out, which is super unique because like for me with sports PT background, like I talk about sports all day long. I talk about athletes all day long. But like you've seen so much. You've seen so many different things and are able to help so many different people in so many different ways that it's just, I mean it honestly, it's really, really cool to just kind of take in your perspective on the way that you help people because it's so rich because it is blended from so many different backgrounds.
Yeah, man, thank you. I appreciate it. Truthfully, there was a time in my career where I was pretty self-conscious about how non-specific, I guess, my background was. If we go traditionally clinical thinking, like I didn't do a fellowship or a residency. I didn't have a membership with APTA for a while. Like I said, I worked in a different clinic, a different city, a different setting every 3 months, right? So it wasn't traditional. I felt like that was a detriment to my value as a professional. But it's funny, thinking back to when I would have conversations in undergrad or high school with my father, and he would ask, like, what do you want to do? Because even it was unclear to him, clearly, right? So I remember saying to him, like, I don't know for sure. I just know that I don't want every day to be exactly the same. And that's kind of what I've built for myself. I think the experiences that I've had, while not profound or a lot compared to some people, have just forced me to learn how to talk about the same thing in multiple different ways and make it quite digestible and accessible to everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. What was it that you mentioned you knew you didn't want to be in the traditional setting? Like what was it? And you may have already answered this when you said you didn't want to do the same thing every single day. You want every day to look different. Like what was going on, or what were some of the thoughts you were having when you were trying to decide what your future wanted to look like, and then ultimately building that?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. The obvious is that I just did not enjoy treating the way that the traditional setting needs us to treat. And I know there's a lot of layers there. I know the system is at fault for high census and the documentation runaround that we have to go through and the billing, but just objectively true, I didn't enjoy treating that volume of people. I didn't enjoy treating a collection of humans where a considerable percentage ultimately didn't really want to be there. And I get why they don't want to be there. Whether or not they wanted to be there, it just didn't feel like it was me. So that's one thing. The other thing is, like, I've always had this desire to, like, build something and create something. That felt stifled to me when I worked for someone. So we would be having this conversation whether I was a physio or an engineer or a chef. Like working for someone eventually just was not going to be what I did, at least not full time. I work for two people right now, but very sparingly as a contractor, if you may. So those two things were big for me. And, I think early in my career, I'll be completely honest, I kind of was enamored by the aura of like the digital nomad, creator, influencer. One of my mentors long time ago is Shantae Cofield. Connected with her through one of my previous mentors, and I kind of watched her build just a great online presence in business. She's known as the Movement Maestro. You may have seen her. She lives in SoCal. But I just watched her build this thing, and I was like, I can do that. Like, I want to do that for myself. Build a brand, build a business. So that's what I did.
Yeah. It's funny because I was always the opposite. I never wanted to own my own business. Part of the reason for that was because I was looking at it through the lens of the traditional setting. Like, I didn't want to just build another insurance clinic. I didn't want to manage a whole team of people. And so I had no desire for that. But then working in the traditional setting for 2 years, I felt a lot of the same things you did. My employer wasn't asking me to see anything more than what I'd be asked anywhere else. That volume, I just felt like I had more to give to each person that I was working with. And I go home at the end of the day and I think, man, if I just had a little bit of time to think, like I could have gotten them better today, or I could have cut their visits in half. But because my attention was spread to 2, 3, 4 people at a time, I just didn't feel like I could give my best. So that's when I set out to do this. I heard Ray speak on a podcast, and then I started following him and then got connected with him, and here we are. So yeah, it's anybody I talk to that's in this setting has a similar like internal stirring where they just know that there's something more for them, or there's something different for them. And it's not that the traditional setting is bad, it's just not right for everybody. So yeah. So I want to get into the deeper topic that we're going to talk about today, and that's chronic pain. I haven't had anybody on to date to speak about chronic pain. So I know that you have a lot of experience with this, and not even just the experience, the way that you word things, the way that you speak through things, I feel like just hits home for a number of people. So no better person to have on than you to talk about this. So with chronic pain, I guess the first question to ask is, how does it happen?
Yeah, great question. I first want to I want to address the term chronic pain. I'm going to take a leap here and make an assumption that a lot of the folks listening to this are also movement professionals.
I would say there's a mix of movement professionals and just people from the community.
Hey, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either way, right? The term chronic pain does have this like stigma attached to it. All the way down to the point where I've heard people say like, oh, I have pain, it's chronic pain. As if chronic represents some sort of, qualifier for severity or intensity, right? Or like seriousness. If we're being honest here, chronic means nothing more than greater than 3 months. Some people consider it greater than 6 weeks, right? So chronic just means long-standing pain, right? It's been there for a while. Stubborn pain, persistent pain, chronic pain, whatever you want. And I, for a long time, avoided using the term chronic pain to try to stay away from that like icky feeling when it was heard or said. And eventually I was like, no, this isn't right. This isn't okay. Like, I'm going to call it what it is and then help people understand what that means and kind of make it feel less scary. I have chronic pain right now. Me here, sitting here, I have chronic pain. I'm not in pain right now, but I have lower back pain that now pops up once a quarter, maybe once a month, right? I went for a 10K run yesterday. I am doing this weird daily swing thing. So I'm trying to swing a certain number every day. And there was dead ball pickups from the ground yesterday at the workout. And my lower back was like, hey, bro, not amazing, right? Like, I had 4 years of lower back pain that caused sciatica, numbness, and tingling in my foot. I don't have that anymore. I am out of pain, but I still have lower back pain that pops up. Maybe it's because I had pain before. Maybe it's just because I'm a 32-year-old dude. It's just pain is pain, right? So the name itself, I do think needs to be honored, if you may. But how chronic pain happens? How does pain become something that stays around for longer than a few weeks? How does pain become something that finds its way through the therapeutic attention that you've been getting and the recovery and the medicine and whatever else? There's a lot of layers, right? I mean, first of all, tissue injury and tissue healing, quite frankly, takes time. And sometimes when tissues heal, they don't heal in the same way that they started. Ipso facto, a scar on your skin doesn't look the same as your skin. Your skin's healed, but it's different, right? Which means it doesn't move the same. It doesn't feel pressure and heat the same. It doesn't feel the shirt on your skin the same. It's just different. It's not bad or good. But when we look at pain itself, we have these extra layers of how you think about pain, what happened when the pain started, what you've been told your whole life, what you understand, all of these other things that make pain last longer. Do not hear me say, it's all in your head. Hear me say, your head's a big part of it, right? But chronic pain doesn't necessarily mean you're still broken. It just means you're still healing.
Yeah. Yeah, and gosh, I want everybody to know there are so many nuances and so many layers to this, and we're not going to unpack all of them today. But I just want to introduce the idea that, chronic pain or living with chronic pain or training with chronic pain, like it doesn't have to be like a hard stop. It doesn't have to be the brake pads on your life. And one thing I want to talk about is like how to move beyond that. Before that, what are some common themes that you have seen in the individuals that you work with who are dealing with this chronic or persistent or long-lasting pain? What do you see in their mindset and their circumstances or even their approach to therapy and working with you?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a large part of my understanding and framework as of late is based on me working with largely active individuals. We're not talking about performers or athletes in the traditional sense, but these are people who are like do more than the average person. They like working out. It's part of their identity. So I'll own that, like much of my perspective is that. But I do think the things that I'm going to say are true for like everyone, whether you just do daily walks, you do nothing, or you're, doing competitions a couple times a year. One of the big things that I see people struggle with mentally and emotionally when they're dealing with pain is this concept of pain kind of taking away a part of them, right? So I think a lot of the actual pain experienced is secondary to the physical pain. We're mourning the lifestyle that we've lost temporarily, the part of our identity that we held so close to ourselves, whether that is I am a weightlifter or I am a dad who plays with his kids on the ground, like we have lost that for a little bit. And I think that really trips people up, gets in their head, makes it difficult for them to look at the positives, the small wins that are occurring, makes it difficult for them to have motivation to do the therapeutic work that they need to before work or after work or whatever it may be. So, that's one big thing is like when you're in pain for long enough, you start to feel like not only have you lost your prior identity, but now being in pain is your identity, which again, there's a whole rabbit hole we can go down there. One thing I see very commonly with active individuals, and I just mean active as like you do fitness 3 times a week, is this weird combination of hopefulness, and what I call kind of like blind hopefulness, naive hopefulness, and pessimism at the same time. Here's an example. I've had many, many clients who will go into a workout, walk into the gym or walk out onto their trail and kind of have this thought of like, all right, I've been feeling good for 3 or 4 days or 2 or 3 weeks. This is going to be the day. This is going to be the workout. This is going to be the lift that actually proves that I'm good. They're just hoping that session or that day or that week is like proof that they're back, that they're getting better. At the same time, the other half of their brain is like, don't step wrong. You better warm up correctly. Don't bend over too fast because you're probably going to get hurt. And those two things are at war with each other. Neither of them are productive. And especially when they're fighting each other, they're unproductive. So one of the things I try to help people do in the beginning is stop being so, sorry to be blunt, but blindly hopeful. Stop going into workouts hoping that this is going to be the day that you feel better, because you just set yourself up for disappointment. I'm not telling people to go into the workout assuming it's going to be bad, right? Or going into the workday or getting out of bed assuming it's going to be bad, but kind of expect some stuff to not go awesome and start planning for how you're going to keep it as awesome as possible when it's not going so great.
Man. And like I hope anybody listening can just like understand the complexity, because you described it really well. These two things are at war with each other. They're going back and forth, and it's all of that is taking place within our minds. And so to one, not only provide education, but get someone to buy in and understand like, okay, these are the things you're thinking, and this is the result that it's having. Let's try to shift this first in your mind a little bit so that we can have the proper perspective when you go out to train or when you go out to be physically active. And again, none of this is easy, because like you said, pain can become part of our identity. And I've worked with a few people. I've worked with a few people that have been in pain for 10, 15 years, has limited them from doing X, Y, and Z. And they just kind of throw that out of their mind like, oh, I can't do that anymore. I'm not willing to do that anymore. I'm not willing to try. But it's almost like, and I almost feel bad saying this, but they look for excuses or look for things they can't do so that they can show people that they're in pain. And that, to me, has been a difficult situation to work through with some people, because instead of having their identity in, an activity or faith or religion or whatever, it then becomes pain. And so it's almost like they want to be out of pain, but if they become pain-free or if they learn how to work through it, then they almost lose their identity again, because they're tying themselves to pain. Does that make sense?
It does. I think it's super valid, and in defense of folks who are going through something like that, I do think much of that approach is a coping mechanism for fear, right? If I and I don't even think it's front of mind thinking, but there's probably something to the likes of, if I own this identity and I make sure that I, first of all, avoid things that hurt, well, then I'm going to hurt less, right? But if I make sure everyone knows what I'm going through, what I can't do, how careful I'm trying to be, then I am at less of a risk of, failing at this thing, right? It's like, well, this is just the safer option. People will learn to stop asking so much from me, and it's not because they're lazy, it's because when they are asked to do more, when they're expected to do more because it looks like they're getting better, now there's this expectation that you're going to continue to get better, and if I don't continue to get better, if I flare up or I relapse or I have a setback, people are going to judge me for that. I think the laziness is a protective mechanism, a coping mechanism, if you may. Yeah, like humans love a few things. One of those is identities. We love names. We love to be part of a thing, right? A clan, a club, sharing an identity with other people. We also love tools. I think humans just love tools. This is a whole tangent that I've talked about before, but anytime we can get our hands on a tool, we perseverate on it, right? Like clinicians do this all the time. They learn this new thing, dry needling, scraping, cupping, and they're like, that's their whole world. Again, we could have beers over that, but yeah, I think people are trying to, protect themselves, and it becomes a trap. One of the other things I see with folks who are dealing with pain is this messy goal situation, this messy picture of where they want to get back to. I have a lot of calls throughout the week with people who are looking to work with me or kind of feeling it out, or maybe the 3 months in working together, whatever it may be. And the question comes up what are we doing? What do you want to get back to? Right? I'll ask a common question of hey, we're on our 6th monthly call, right? Or we're on a call in a year from now, and you get on that call and you're like, yeah, I did it. We did it. I'm good. I'm like, what does that mean? And I think people tell themselves that they want to be out of pain, and at the same time are telling themselves that it's unrealistic that they're ever going to get out of pain. They don't think it's realistic to talk about being pain-free, but they want to be pain-free. And I say, well, cool, what does that look like? And they're like, well, I just don't have pain. And I'm like, what do you want to be able to do without pain? Because we can make you pain-free pretty quickly. We can go to the pharmacy, get some good old Oxycontin, oxycodone, Percocets, whatever. We can, Advil even, right? Have you relax, get some ice, and you're probably not going to feel pain. Is that what you want? Probably not. So then I bring up this decision, and it's not always black and white. Here's option one. You have no pain, but you can do 50% of what you used to be able to do. Option two, you have pain. Let's make it extreme and say you have pain once a week, but you can do 95% of what you used to do. Which one do you want? Well, I want the 95%. Oh, so do you want to be out of pain? Or do you want to be beyond your pain, right? It's a good little segue for you. But there's a difference, you know?
Yeah, man, all of that, you just, again, this is why I have you on, because you just say things so well. You say things in a way that make way more sense than if I said them. But yeah, it's just, and that's the parallel that I outlined on my previous podcast where I gave you the shout out. Was, everybody wants to be pain-free. Nobody likes or wants to experience pain. But you can, in some regards, you have the choice of what you're willing to do with it or what you're willing to do for it. And you can either, for some people who are having pain that, we're having a hard time getting it to go away, you can sit on the couch and have pain and, lose some of your functionality. You can lose some of the activities that you're used to doing, or we can teach you some good parameters. We can teach you how to work with it, work through it. And the choice then becomes do you want to be someone who can barely get off the couch and have pain? Or do you want to be someone who can go to the gym, lift weights, do your yard work, whatever, with that same pain? Again, which would you rather be? So when you phrase things or when you frame things in that way, that was super powerful for my learning, because it just kind of shifted my focus towards, okay, control what we can control, but let's do more and give our patients, give our clients the mindset, give them the education that they have a big choice in this, and we can guide them to whichever version of themselves they want to be. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
it does. I mean, here's the thing. At the end of the day, pain is an inevitable part of human life, of the human experience, if you may.
Yeah.
Every human on this earth will experience pain unless you have that one diagnosis, that medical anomaly that I saw in House 15 years ago where people can't experience pain. We are all going to experience pain. And when you think from that perspective, your pain it makes you less unique. It makes you less unfortunate than every other human. I'm not downplaying your pain experience. Just recognize the fact that you just got pain sooner, or you have it more frequent right now, or it's more intense right now than everyone else. If I walked outside and I walked far enough, or I picked up a heavy enough thing, I would have pain. For you, walking to the door gives you pain. It's just a different part of the same spectrum. It's okay, cool. Well, what does that tell me? Well, that tells you that you can no longer judge your success of your recovery on whether or not you have pain. It is not possible to be black and white. What we need to do is say, how long until the pain starts now? How much can you do before it goes above a 4 out of 10? How often are you having flare-ups? How many days are you going with less pain? Do you still have pain? Yes. Is it less? Yes. Cool. Well, we're doing better. I have plenty of clients in the past who we get on a call and they say, it still hurts, right? Or a patient comes in and it still hurts. So I'm I know it still hurts. I wouldn't have expected it to not hurt, but how much does it hurt? What time of day, right? People trap themselves in this little black box of, I hate to be insensitive, but woe is me, I'm still in pain. No, you are a human. We got to go further than that. And this is not how the conversation happens with patients and clients in the moment, but this is the watered down or the washed away version of it, if you may.
Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about moving beyond it. So, and we also talked about the mindset behind it. So when you have someone in front of you and you're talking about mindset, or like the initial stage one, first step of changing their mindset or beliefs, either around chronic pain or around moving with it, how are you tackling that?
Man, that's a question right there.
And the other thing to add here is, like, everybody's different. Everyone's going to respond to something different. Everyone's in a different stage of, either pain or stage of recovery or stage of life. But yeah, just when we talk about the mindset or beliefs around it, if you have someone who's fearful of movement, if you have someone who, stopped doing deadlifts because that hurt them a while ago, what's stage one of teaching them that, okay, this doesn't have to be a lifelong thing?
Yep. Yeah, so a few words come to mind, early on in the process, whether it's in person or remote. We're trying to gain clarity around what makes them hurt, what doesn't make them hurt as much or at all. What are they good at right now, or strong with, or tolerating well, and what are they not? Let's just get an understanding of what is good and what is not so good right now. And also let's get an understanding of what you actually want to achieve, right? Which we talked about before. Let's just get clear on what we want and what we need, so that we're not just focused on this, pie in the sky that is pain-free. Can we just give ourselves some other things to focus on first, right? And that usually calms some people down, because if you're just chasing this thing that feels so far away, things get real, demoralizing and messy. The other thing is control and consistency. So one of the topics that comes up early with folks, whether they're in person or an online client, is like, we're probably not going to make this feel better in the first 3 days. We're probably not going to make significant changes in the first 3 weeks, especially when it's chronic enough. So like, can we just consistently move without it getting worse? Can we gain some control over your daily movement practice and over your life, where this thing becomes a little bit less distracting, a little bit less noisy, right? And some of that noise is taken away when we get clear on things. So that's the first thing, is like, can we just free you of the shackles that is get pain-free? Can you just move away from that for a second and put that to the side? We'll get pain-free eventually. Let's just gain some control and get back to a consistent movement pattern, and get confident in your body and confident in your ability to actually succeed with this mission. So a while back, I started to, first let me say where Move Beyond It came from. Obviously, as we all do, trying to come up with a name for our business that's cool and speaks to what we do. And I've had many iterations. At one point, my business was called Prospect, Rehab, and Performance, speaking to having a perspective outlook, like up and forward. And eventually I was like, it's not cool. I need to come up with something different. And at the same time, I was working with a lot of folks who were in chronic pain. And I realized that a lot of my conversations with folks were like, first of all, do you want to be pain-free? And like, how realistic is that in the next month from now, or the next 6 months from now? Or like, how realistic is that ever? And I'm not saying you will never get, pain-free, but like, first, let's just move beyond your pain. Let's get to a place where you can move regularly, undistracted, unbridled by fear and hesitation, and you can live life with pain. And I was like, that's it right there. Like, most of us humans just need to be given permission to try to get back to a life with pain first. So instead of pain-free, we tried to start just moving beyond pain. And I was like, that's it right there. We're going to stick with that. So a few months later, maybe a year later, I was poking at that. And every time I would go on a run, or I would meditate or journal or whatever, I was like, is there more here? And I came up with 4 statements, right? In order to get to the place where you are pain-free, hopefully, but at the very least, living a life beyond pain, you actually first have to move towards the pain. And that looks like, doing things that are scary or maybe mildly painful, getting back into exercises or using muscles or joints that hurt, right? First, you have to move towards it, to see how bad it is, to start washing away the fear, to desensitize if we want to get clinical. And then you have to start to move with it. Can you start living your day more and more with the pain that you have without it getting worse, or without you having a meltdown or burning out? Can we just sit side by side with this pain and feel like you are in control and it's not controlling you and you have to run away from it and hide? And then we've got to move through it. That looks like increasing intensity, doing more, actually forcing the pain to happen because you know that you can recover well now, or knowing that doing this painful step down is actually going to make your knee hurt less, but you got to kind of move through the painful step downs for a couple of weeks. And then eventually you get to the place where you can move beyond your pain. Every day you live 90% of your life undistracted by that pain because it's so little or because it's so infrequent. You are so confident in your body and in your ability to make decisions that the thought of pain popping up in tomorrow's workout doesn't really affect you anymore, because you know how to make it go away in 2 or 3 days, because you know that the pain you experience nowadays isn't your disc herniating. It's just something you experience nowadays. So that's kind of like the evolution of moving beyond pain, at least in the way I explain it nowadays.
Yeah, super cool. Super cool. And that's all stuff that you just over time learned as you worked with people in this population. Just super cool. You said a word. You said desensitize. So we'll take deadlift for example, because I think, and we'll go along with the low back pain example, because I do feel like that's one of the more common things that we see in this setting.
Yeah.
Someone with low back pain who's afraid to deadlift, afraid to start deadlifting. What's your method of how to start desensitizing that movement pattern?
So when you have pain during an exercise or a daily movement, whether it's deadlifting or picking your shoes up off the ground, you have to realize that you're having pain potentially because of multiple things, right? You might be having pain because of the actual movement itself. You might be having pain because of the weight of your body or the weight of the thing you are picking up. And you might be having pain because the movement you're doing caused you pain a year ago. And now your brain says, every time he does this movement, I'm going to create a pain sensation to prevent him from doing the movement because I think it's going to hurt him again, like injure him again. That's a whole other cup of tea, but it's very valid. So when you say, okay, this thing gives me pain, that's too overwhelming. Deadlifts give me pain, right? I've had many clients who say like, oh, I programmed deadlifts. Let's use it as an example. And it was RDLs, right? So an RDL is technically a deadlift, but from the top. And they say, I couldn't do them today. It hurt. And I'm like, okay, how much weight did you do? I did 65 pounds, which is just a 10 on each side. And I'm like, okay, so did RDLs or deadlifts with 65 pounds hurt, or were deadlifts painful? And they're like, well, I didn't go any lighter than that. And I'm like, why not? It's so funny. We have these like weird thresholds of like, oh, well, that's the lightest you can have on the barbell. So if I can't do the barbell with some weight, then I can't do it. So to help people become desensitized, I want to help them understand what they're sensitive to. You're sensitive to load, you're sensitive to movement, you're sensitive to range, and you're quite frankly just sensitive to the thought of the thing.
Yeah.
So how can we go after each of those things separately? Well, maybe that looks like, instead of deadlifting right now, we're just going to make your back work kind of hard. Maybe that's a Superman. Maybe that's carrying a heavy book bag around your house to make your back work. Maybe that's getting down onto 2 knees and doing some tall kneeling hinging. We're going to desensitize you to those muscles working. We're going to desensitize you to your hips bending. We're going to desensitize you to your eyes moving towards the ground. For now, I want you to just accept the fact that you can't deadlift and stop letting that bother you. And let's just go after these other things. Because you ain't going to deadlift whether you're upset about it or you're not. It just ain't happening right now, right? So let's do the other things.
Yeah, and one of the many, many things that I learned from you, and I'm just taking deadlift as an example here, is yes, there are all these different things you can be sensitive to and all these different little variables that we can manipulate or tweak or change so that we can get people not afraid to do the movement. So is it load? Is it the amount of weight that you're trying to pick up or the weight that you're trying to move? Is it the movement itself and we need to clean up form a little bit? Is it just the range of motion? So if it bothers you to deadlift going all the way to the ground, can we do a half deadlift or a mini deadlift and just go from a different platform? and find success there. And once you build up some tolerance and capacity and resilience to that range of motion, then we drop it down a little bit and reintroduce you to another range, check your response. And so like, I feel like we, and I say this, we as a society, because I lump myself in with this, it's like this all or none principle where either I do a full deadlift or I don't do it at all. But like, if this is something that has bothered you for a long time, something you've avoided for a long time, let's just break it up into little parts. We'll make sure that you're doing it in a way that is good and sustainable and comfortable for you. Then we can start, either playing with the range or playing with the load or like manipulating these little variables to make it seem less scary, to, give you the confidence, build it up, and more importantly, show them that they can do it in whatever parameters we set. And so that has been super helpful for me, not even with deadlifts, but now I'm thinking of other people that have knee pain or, it bothers them to squat or whatever. So like just breaking it down into, is it load? Is it range of motion? Is it technique or form? Like all of that stuff is so helpful. And then you start to just build it and people start to see a little bit of success, and they buy in.
Yes.
And then they go for the rest of the plan, and it's awesome. And they get where they want to go. So even just having that perspective has been super helpful for me in working with the people that I work with. And truthfully, that all came from what I learned from you.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, here's the thing, right? Like physical therapy, rehab is often just really well-informed trial and error, right? Like we use that deadlift example. We can use a knee pain with walking example and say like, my knee has been hurting for multiple years. I go to PT, I work on my strength and my mobility. Things are starting to feel better. But I'm still afraid that walking around the block is going to hurt. It's like, we kind of have to F around and find out here. We have to trial and see how far you can walk. And that's kind of like that moving through the pain part of it. It's like, I think an elevated deadlift with 50% weight is going to be tolerable with minimal pain. Like we just got to figure out where we are in space first before we can start trying to solve the problem. Why don't you go for 2-minute walks and see how much pain it gives you, and then we'll adjust from there. But that's really scary for someone who's been in pain for a long time to say, I'm going to do a thing that's going to purposefully create the pain. Yeah, but if we dose it in the right way, we're going to create 40% of the pain you usually experience. And now we can work on adding a quarter mile every week and hopefully keeping it at 40%. If not, probably letting it drop over time.
Yeah. And when we talk about desensitizing pain or desensitizing movements, like one thing I tell people is like, I want you to do this, but I don't need you to like blow through that pain threshold. I don't need you to like, if you get to a certain movement and it hurts, like just work up to where it hurts, and we'll do that for a little while. And then over time that starts to become less painful, and then we go further. Like just really telling people, I say, don't blow through the pain, just work up to it. And then, that has been helpful for me in a lot of situations. Not every situation, but a lot of them.
I tell people to flirt with discomfort. It's tough to have a good number. Everyone's pain scale is different. Everyone and their mother has a high pain tolerance. It's tough to give people a number. And usually my numbers, my guidelines are like, listen, if this gives you pain, but it's very mildly distracting, keep going. If it gives you pain that really forces you to start, making facial expressions and squirming and changing your technique, back off. Likewise, if it felt great that day, but the pain lasts into 24 hours, we need to back off, right? Like we don't need to do anything that increases your pain for more than a day or gives you pain for more than a day. There's plenty of other ways we can do things. So keep it below 4 and keep it lasting less than 24 hours is my general rule of thumb for folks.
When you're working with someone in this capacity, like let me rewind. If you're teaching clinicians, or if you're working with clinicians on how to work through some of these scenarios, what are some of your tips on how and when to progress, when to pull back, when to stay exactly where you are? Like what are your guidelines or parameters for making decisions, whether progression, regression, or staying where you are?
Yeah, good question. A good rule of thumb that I tell clinicians to do is don't turn too many knobs at the same time. So giving someone an additional exercise while also making the first exercise harder and recognizing that they're probably doing a little bit more in their life because things are feeling better. Like it's a lot happening, at one time. The other thing to remember is like the whole weekly increase in intensity, whether it's making it a deeper range of motion or making it faster or heavier, is like arbitrary. It's okay if your person does the same thing for 2 weeks in a row before you give them a progression. It's okay if you, the patient, the client, has to do the same exercise for 4 weeks in a row. And the only thing that we're trying to change is how hard it is or how much discomfort there is, right? I think people forget that like part of pain is like making tissues better, growing them, making them stretch longer, making them slide and glide better. And like our body is designed, depending on what you believe, over thousands of years to be incredibly efficient and resist change because that takes energy. So in order to get the body that doesn't want to change, you have to ask it a lot, multiple times a week, multiple weeks in a month, right? Multiple months in a row before your body's like, all right, I'll do it, right? I'll get stronger or I'll get rid of this pain signal that I keep telling you because I think it's protective and I really don't want you to get hurt. But you've shown me so many times that you can hinge, to your knees with very little pain that I'm kind of proven wrong. So I'll let you hinge further now because I actually don't think it's going to hurt you anymore, right? So it just takes a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. And that's the thing. Our society in general, always looking for a quick fix. The athletes that I'm working with, like they'll come in 2 days after they get hurt and they'll say, why does this still hurt? Why isn't it better already? And I'm like, because it's been 2 days. So yes, I think that the patience and the understanding, one, within ourselves as clinicians, and two, being able to educate our patients or clients or athletes, whatever, on just like typically adaptations don't happen very quickly. There are some things that we can manipulate a little bit quicker than others, but especially in these cases of things that have been going on for quite a while, like it takes a little bit of time, and there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. Some days you're going to feel great and you're going to want to do more. Some days you're going to feel crappy and want to do less. But like just learning the consistencies, learning on both ends for us and the patient, just like how to kind of push and pull a little bit so that we can still get the end result that you're looking for. But yeah.
This is a good reminder for clinicians as well as non-clinicians, patients, regular people. It's like, it's okay not to know why something is happening or when it's going to change for a little while. I've had, there was a time in my career when a client would message me or email me and say like, hey, this is happening, right? Whether they asked why or not, I had this urge to be like, okay, it's probably your glutes or your core or your big toe. And here's what we're going to probably try to do. Here's a few extra exercises. And often it just makes things messier, right? So if you're a clinician and a client tells you that something hurts, it's okay to say, I'm not sure why. I need more time to understand. I need more data. I need this thing to hurt or maybe not hurt 2 more times before we really understand like potentially why it's happening or what adjustments we need to make. For people who aren't clinicians, who are working through pain, working with a coach or a physical therapist, like give them some grace and understanding that like sometimes they're not going to know. Their degree gives them the ability to dissect and understand eventually, but it doesn't make them an oracle, an all-knowing thing with every little symptom. The human body is incredibly complex, and sometimes we just need some more time to figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. Last thing here to wrap this up, 3 takeaways or 3 things that you want patients or clinicians to know about working with or through chronic pain?
The solution is almost never just a physical solution. So that's the first one. When you have pain, it's almost never going to be just exercises and soft tissue work and, medicine that's going to solve the problem. There's going to be lifestyle changes, recovery changes, mindset changes that are going to need to happen in order for this thing to really get behind you. Right? So that's the first one. Number two is before you achieve the goal of being pain-free, let yourself be okay with achieving the goal of living a life beyond pain. Living a life that's no longer bridled by the fear and hesitation that you have of this pain happening. There's a lot of examples of what that looks like, but chase beyond pain before you chase pain-free. It'll happen, but let's do that next. And the third one is like there's a lot of layers here. There's a lot of complexity here. We will never fully understand how and why pain works as regular people or as clinicians. The understanding comes from breaking it down in these smaller pieces. What feels good right now? What doesn't feel good right now? It's not always about why do you hurt? What thing is weak? What thing is strong? What thing needs to be mobilized? Sometimes it's just like, what hurts? Can I make it hurt less for now so that I can get a little stronger and do it consistently? What doesn't hurt so I can feed the fire of just movement health and do that stuff more? You don't always have to have a diagnosis or a reason or a specific mechanism of injury in order to solve the problem. We're learning more and more. It almost doesn't matter what that stuff is sometimes for certain injuries and pain.
Yeah. Okay. So that was just honestly really the tip of the iceberg of where we could go. But Tyler is, I said this a million times, he is just one of the best at what he does. He is one of the best at just communicating effectively with everybody that he is in contact with. And I am so incredibly thankful. I am so just honored, frankly, that you would come on here and speak with me and not only just help me understand, but help anybody who listens to understand. I know you put a lot of stuff out on your social media. You've done other podcasts. You're just one of the greatest resources that we have in not only working with others or people who are looking to better themselves, but just to understand like even the mental components of life. You're just, I mean it, man. You are just a wonderful and incredible resource for us in this profession. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your willingness to come on this tiny little podcast when you have such a big platform, and you're just a wonderful person. I'm very thankful for that.
Well, I'm glad to be here, man. It was a good chat, and these are the things that is going to make our profession better. It's going to, bring healthy movement and smart training and smart approach to pain to a wide variety of people. So you're doing great as well, right? You're running a podcast while trying to do your own thing. It's a good hustle, and I'm proud of you for it. So thanks for having me on, and I hope we do this again in the future.
Where can people find you? People that might not be familiar with you from my audience, where can they find you?
Yeah, so quite frankly, just searching my name, Tyler Kallasy. I'm sure you'll probably put that in the show notes. On Instagram, it's tylerkallasy.dpt. And, I have a website. We've got a YouTube channel. And then as we've spoken on, I'm currently writing a book to help active individuals move beyond their pain, the physical, mental, and emotional approach to overcoming pain, if you may, in a very digestible way with stories and timelines fed throughout to make those systems and those techniques kind of make sense and flow well.
Just another example of the resource that you are for us. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of the Higher Powered Podcast. Another huge thank you to Tyler for coming on and enlightening us with his knowledge. For anybody who is looking to get in touch with myself or Tyler, you can find our information in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Higher Powered Podcast, presented by Higher Powered Sports PT. We hope you gained valuable insights on how to stay strong, move better, and prevent injury, all backed by expert knowledge in sports physical therapy and athletic training. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Your support helps us bring more evidence-based tips and strategies to active individuals just like you. For more resources or to connect with us, head over to hpsportspt.com. That's hpsportspt.com. Remember, you've got the power to perform at your best. Keep training smarter, recovering faster, and living stronger. Just a reminder that the content shared in this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It should not be considered medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your health or treatment plan. Thanks for tuning in. We hope to see you next time on the Higher Powered Podcast.